7, whatever, 6. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch. This is Policy Talks, brought to you monthly by the Williamson Inc., our Williamson County Chamber of Commerce. We're glad to have a bright-eyed audience here at Columbia State this morning, and want to welcome you all here to this beautiful campus that Columbia State is providing for us to hold these shows. We've got a TV audience that, thanks to Creed Henderson and his crew at the county cable TV channel, Comcast Channel 3, and thanks to Tom Lawrence over at WKM, we've got the radio audience too. So we welcome all of you. Hope you enjoy as we pick the brains of these gentlemen that represent us in Nashville at down on the hill, as they say. We've got with us this morning our senator representing the 23rd district here, which includes most of Williamson County, Jack Johnson. It's now the 27th. Didn't it used to be 23? I'm behind. Stand corrected already. The 27th district, Jack, he's our Senate Majority Leader. We're proud of that, and I'm proud to have you with us this morning, Jack. To his left, Representative Todd Warner from Chapel Hill, who represents the southern portion of Williamson County, as well as Marshall and, help me, Todd.
Marshall and Southern Williamson.
Okay. And our newest member of the delegation is with us this morning, Jake McCalman. Jake, you represent generally the east side of Williamson County and north of Todd's district there. And there, correct, okay. And we're glad to have you with us. Sam Whitson, our 65th district representative, is going to be in a budget committee meeting in Nashville, was not able to join us. And Joey Hensley, who represents a small portion of the southern part of the county as senator down there, is not able to join us either. So we'll look forward to getting the full story from these gentlemen here. Jack, okay, now how long have you been representing us in the Senate?
Good morning, everyone. Good to be back with you. I've been in the Senate now for 16 years, just elected to my 5th term, which is somewhat hard for me to believe. I remember coming to see you in 2006 and asking for your support when I was very first running. So it's been some time ago. But don't feel bad, Dave, about it is confusing in terms of the redistricting process, which we just went through. We have to do it every 10 years. Constitution requires it, and we did that. We have to redistrict or reapportion all 99 House districts across the state because they're based on population, all 33 Senate districts, and then our 9 congressional districts for our federal delegation. And as Majority Leader, I was the sponsor of that legislation. That's one part of being Majority Leader I don't like. It's not an easy job to figure all of that out. But because of the growth we've had in Middle Tennessee, and more specifically Williamson County, and since districts are based on population, we have gained representation for the county. And that's a very good thing. I'm very excited about not only do we have 2 new Williamson County members of our delegation, Jake McCalman and Gino Bulso, representing the 63rd and 65th House districts, but because of the growth in population, we gained Todd Warner in the House, as you said, on the southern part, and also gained another state senator. So I have most of Williamson County, but Spring Hill is now all of Spring Hill proper city is now in Joey Hensley's district, which is to the south of us. Senator Hensley represents Murray County and Lewis County and 1 or 2 other rural counties. So we've gone from 4 members of our delegation to 6, and that's a really, really good thing. And we've got a great team representing the county.
And I forgot to mention Gino Bulso, who now represents the northern part of our county. And I understand he had to make a living today. He's got to be in court. He's an attorney and can't be.
Something I can relate to. You know,
Yes.
I've got 2 kids in college, and y'all don't pay me enough as a state senator for that to be my only job.
One other thing, Jack, I'd like you to help us with, and that's your responsibilities as Senate Majority Leader. probably a lot of responsibilities there, but one of them is carrying the governor's legislation. And most of the time, that's probably pretty easy to balance that along with representing the 27th district now. What happens if the governor's got an agenda that maybe doesn't quite gel with the folks in the 27th district?
Well, I represent the people of the 27th district. They are my bosses. That's who I represent. Interestingly, the governor is one of those people. The governor is a Williamson County resident. So it's further complicated, Dave. He's not only the governor, he's my constituent. But no, very rarely does that happen. Governor Lee and I think the people of Williamson County are very, very closely aligned on most all issues. There have been a couple of times when there was something that I didn't think was necessarily right for Williamson County or the state, and it's quite simple. We sit down, we have a conversation about it. But not only do I have to do that, it is my job as majority leader and as the sponsor of the governor's legislative package, including the budget, to be a liaison between the Senate and the House. Similarly, the Senate and the governor's office. My friend and the colleague of these gentlemen, the House Majority Leader, William Lamberth, has the same job in the House. And so, there are times the governor might have an idea or a proposal, and he brings it to me. He might bring it to the Speaker of the Senate. We have a conversation. We go talk to our members, and sometimes we got to go back to the governor and say, we like the idea, but we don't like this piece, or we need to change. We're going to need to change this part. And I can tell you the governor and his team are wonderful to work with, and a lot of that conversation happens outside the public eye, and that's by design, because once we do decide on how we would like to proceed, we'd like to all be singing off the same page.
Gotcha. Todd Warner, 92nd District, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And you live in Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill.
You're in the construction business.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your family, your personal situation there.
We farm. I grew up on a farm. We farm probably 800 acres to 1,000. Row crop and corn and soybeans. And that's kind of a heritage, kind of a hobby. That's what, I was raised on a farm.
Right.
But we have a small construction company doing grading, utility work. We're currently working on 2 projects here in Williamson County for the county, building new schools. Okay. Do the site work and all the utility work on those schools.
I say, good, good. The newest member of our delegation, Jake McCalman. Jake, you've been a representative now for a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, about 5-10 minutes.
And you live here in the county.
Yes, sir.
And tell us about your family. And I saw a sign over here off I-65, something about McCalman's Cars or something.
McCalman's Autos Plus. Kind of a little venture with my dad and myself, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I am Jake McCalman. I represent the 63rd District of beautiful Williamson County. Married to my wife of 16 years, Rochelle, almost 16 years. It'll be 16 years in June. I'm looking ahead. That's what I'm doing. 3 beautiful daughters in Williamson County Public Schools. Proud of them. I've got one at Page High, one at Page Middle, and one at Creekside. And I love it. Couldn't be more proud of all 3 of them. As far as the business goes, I grew up around auto auctions and heavy equipment auctions and wrecked car auctions. So I deal with buying, Jack's heard this phrase a million times, we're in the junk business. I buy end-of-life heavy equipment and horse trade it and teach karate on the side.
Interesting. Now, you worked for Copart for several years, I think.
Yes, sir.
Copart, just a little personal background on Jake. I won't even go into how I first found that out, but my son decided he needed a wrecked car, and they had one that he wanted. So, but Copart's an international company founded by Jake's grandfather, and very successful company, and Jake worked for them for many years, I think. And
about 10 years, and I grew up playing in those wrecked cars, so I felt like I've been there longer, but yeah, about 10 years.
Good to have you with us, Jake.
Glad to be here.
And I meant to ask, I'll ask you this first, Jake. Committee assignments, what committees have you been given to shepherd?
I, as of now, sit on the Education, Instruction, Full and Subcommittee. I'm on State Government, State Gov Corrections Subcommittee, and Government Ops.
Okay, so you're got some live wires going this session already. Todd, same question for you.
I think I got on all 4 education committees. The speaker, he must think I can help the education here in Tennessee. Education administration, education instruction sub, and I forget the other 2, but they're education committees.
Okay, so that we got the education industry covered well then, it sounds like. We'll circle back to that here in just a minute. Jack, the 800-pound gorilla, as you describe it, is the governor's initiative this session. The governor generally has a priority initiative. And tell us about what his desire is this session and what you expect to accomplish.
Sure. Well, you know, anyone, in fact, I think Jake would speak to this on his way in this morning. We have a traffic issue in Williamson County, and we all experience it. We are blessed, I think, due to good government and the way our state is managed and the people of our state. People want to move here. People want to come. We've got our chamber folks here, and thank y'all for hosting us, and they do a wonderful job of selling Williamson County and the state in general, greater Middle Tennessee. And we're growing fast, and we are outgrowing our infrastructure. And when you say infrastructure, that is a broad term. It's a wide encompassing term. But specifically, I want to talk about transportation. It's not a secret. We've been talking about it for some time. And what is the path? What are we going to do? When you add up statewide all of the projects that need to be done, that are approved to be done, from Memphis to Mountain City, it comes to somewhere in the neighborhood of around $26 billion. You could probably give or take a couple of billion either way, depending on the day. And that's in today's dollars. That doesn't, that's going to keep going up. Just even if you don't add anything to the list, just the cost of construction. TDOT's budget, our Department of Transportation, for new projects every year is roughly $500 million. Do the math. You got a $26 billion problem, you got $500 million a year to spend. So what are you going to do? Well, the governor has said, and I happen to agree with the governor, there's some things we're not going to do. We're not going to raise taxes. We did that a few years ago. We increased the gas tax 9 cents. I supported that. It was the right thing to do, and that helped, and that got some projects done. If you live on the west side of the county, you have Mac Hatcher, and that project would not be done today if we hadn't raised that 9-cent gas tax. We're not going to do that again. We can't tax our way out of this, and we're not going to try to do that. Another thing we're not going to do is borrow money. We're very proud in Tennessee. We're one of a handful of states in the entire nation. We don't owe a dime on our roads. We don't have a single bond issued. We don't owe a penny on any of our roads. We are debt-free. And we're going to stay that way. Well, if you take those options off the table, what are you left with? Well, we have significant budget surpluses because of our, I believe, good management of our fiscal condition in the state of Tennessee. We can divert money from the general fund over to pay for road projects, but that general fund surplus largely comes from sales taxes. And about 90 cents, roughly, about 90 cents of every sales tax dollar we collect comes from a Tennessean. Only about 60 cents, 65 cents of the gas tax comes from Tennesseans. The rest of it comes from people traveling through this state, and a lot of it is trucks. If you've been on I-40, you see those trucks, you drive by a truck stop, and you see them lined up out there buying $500,000 worth of diesel. They're paying to help maintain our roads. So if your proposed solution is to divert money that we have in terms of a surplus, you're taking 90-cent dollars that come from Tennesseans to fund something that's only utilized 60, 65 cents of every dollar. So you see the point. Now, we have done that. We have taken some general fund money and moved it over. So what the governor is proposing, and we still are awaiting details, okay, but he's going to propose something like this. I'm not going to use I-65 because we all drive 65. I'm going to use I-24 from Murfreesboro into Nashville. We think it's bad on 65, and I drive that a lot going to Nashville. 24 is a nightmare. To add a lane from Murfreesboro to Nashville Kent, you could probably tell me specifically, you're talking probably $1 billion, maybe 500, somewhere between 500 million and $1 billion is what I'm told. That's 1 to 2 years of our entire TDOT budget to add one lane. So what other states have done, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, and that's what we're looking at, trying to learn from them, is they do a public-private partnership. An outside entity comes in, builds that lane, the bulk of the cost, the state will put in some of the money, but an outside entity will come in and build that lane. We own it, we don't sell it, but then we give them a 50-year lease, and then they monetize it. And it's referred to as a choice lane. So if you're driving from Murfreesboro to Nashville, Nashville to Murfreesboro, traffic's backed up, you have the lanes that are there now. If you're driving on a road today, it will never be monetized. But we have a new lane that's here. And by the way, it might be underground, it might be up top, it might be off to the side, but there will be a new lane that you can drive in, and you might have to pay $3 or $5 or something. And this outside entity will monetize that and collect their investment. Now, this is important because, number one, it takes some of those big projects off the table, unlocks the bottleneck so that existing resources can go to other projects. We had a great meeting with our friends in Thompson Station and Spring Hill. We need to widen 31. Agreed? Bad. Now, that's a project that we would never use a monetized lane for. But if we can take I-24 off the table by adding a choice lane through a public-private partnership, that frees up a lot of money to go build roads like that, or to widen a road in Mountain City, or to do an improvement over there. So it's conceptual at this point, and I'm excited about it. I flew with the governor a few weeks ago down to Texas with some other members, and we toured the Dallas area. That's where they've done a lot of these kind of projects. And by the way, these projects would only be in these high traffic, high congestion areas. There might only be 8 of them across the entire state where we would utilize this, maybe 10, 12, I don't know. I mean, we'd have to see. There's going to have to be a lot of study and a lot of analysis about it. But if we don't do something, we're going to be in a bad way in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because we're not going to stop growing, I don't think. I think people are going to continue to want to come to Tennessee, and that's a good thing. But we have to plan for that growth. So sorry for the long answer. You're right. It is the issue of this session. I mean, there's a lot of important issues. There's always a lot of important issues. But this is one that's going to impact all of us, and we want to be thoughtful and deliberative about it. But you got to understand the problem. 26 billion, 500 million. Start with that, and then we can start talking about solutions.
Now, Jack, let me circle back just on a couple of details there. I have heard, pure rumor, may be wrong, but I've heard, like for the one in Atlanta that goes down I-75 as you head toward downtown Atlanta, is not making money. Is the appetite for those kind of projects still there from these big Wall Street firms and so forth to put the money up for those kind of things?
Certainly, as you might imagine, something of that scale, that magnitude, and that amount of money, there is a lot of analysis that goes in. And there's people far smarter than I am that can look at these corridors, these thoroughfares like I-24. We'll just continue to use that one just because most people are familiar with it and how bad it is. They can take a look at that, and they do traffic studies, and they do analysis, and they know how many people are driving that road today. They know how many people live in Murfreesboro, how many people are commuting from Murfreesboro to Nashville, or Nashville to Murfreesboro, or using that corridor. How many people are driving to Chattanooga 2 or 3 times a week. And so they really smart people who do really smart analysis and run the math on it and say, if it's going to cost $700 million to build this lane, and by the way, sometimes it might be one lane that in the morning goes this way and then in the evening goes this way. Or it might be 2 lanes. Those are all details that have to be worked out. But if it doesn't make money, the state is not on the hook. It is this public-private entity, this public-private partnership. They're the ones that paid to build it. If it doesn't work, that entity goes bankrupt. The state is not on the hook for it. So yes, there's very thoughtful, careful analysis. Most of them do work, and typically you put a range of the amount of money that can be collected, a certain ROI, And oftentimes it exceeds that, and money comes back to the state. So that these lanes, in many instances, are accretive. They are producing net revenue that then can be used to pay for projects in other parts of the state. Sometimes they're within the range, and they're getting their return on investment.
Okay, and then the Wall Street firms are responsible for maintenance on those lanes.
They are, during that 50-year lease, they're responsible for the maintenance, the upkeep, all of that.
Okay. Mr. Warner.
Sir.
Highway 31 through Spring Hill, I've seen a thing or two about it in the news here recently. Some of us thought that was on the agenda to get done fairly rapidly. Will this proposal, you think, speed Highway 31 up? What are your thoughts?
Well, I definitely don't think it would hurt it. Speaking of 31, it was a topic when I was campaigning over in Spring Hill. That was everybody's concern over there, and it's something that needs to be fixed, and it needs to be done quick. Work with the leader here, the officials down in Thompson Station. We've had numerous meetings with TDOT trying to see if we can get that project moved up. But I don't think the governor's idea here hurts it at all. I think it helps those kind of situations.
You've got a new interchange that will be open.
Yes, it's supposed to open this June, is what TDOT is telling us.
I mean, do the projections tell us what that's going to do to traffic?
I haven't really seen any numbers, but TDOT feels, and I feel as well myself, that it's definitely going to help the situation on 31 over there when that comes in. And we've got almost a bad of a problem on 431. 431 down there at Christ Lane, it's backing up to where folks can't get off of 840 in the afternoon. There's been several wrecks down here lately, and Thompson Station has brought that to our concern. It's just, with all the growth we have in the area, we've got to get out in front of this.
I've been there and experienced that a few times myself. A personal note here, nothing to do with the chamber, but I understand that I-65 south of 840 has not got a plan to be widened at this point. Guys, you need to work on that.
We've brought that to TDOT's attention. When they came down to Spring Hill, they're well aware of that, and I'm sure there'll be some backing up when you're trying to get off at the new interchange there.
Trying to get to the farm. Jake, what does your homework tell you about this proposal that the governor's got on the table?
Well, as a former Dallasite, I think that's what we would call ourselves, I moved here from the Dallas area. I drove, we called it the Dallas North Tollway. It is not a toll road. You don't have to be on it. Those are the first roads that there's an accident that got cleared off. Those are the first roads that got sanded or salted whenever we had ice or snow. Those were the nicest roads to drive on because they were privately maintained. It was in their best interest to keep people on it and moving so they could recoup their IOI. And I can tell you, out of a convenience, driving to and from Dallas every day, that was definitely my preference. Infrastructure, not to echo Todd and Jack both, but I mean, we all know it's a huge issue here. People are coming. I heard one statistic that Williamson County itself is registering 435 new voters every day. Don't quote me on that. That's hearsay, game of telephone. But we're growing faster than we can keep up. And the last thing I want to see, not to reference Texas again, but I don't want to see us become an Austin, Texas, which fought the growth and did nothing about the growth, and the growth came. And now they're having to play catch up, and it's a nightmare. Easily a top 3 issue when I was on the campaign trail, and Dave, I personally knocked on 3,000 houses during the campaign. So top 3 issue for everybody.
Right. Now, transit is something that comes and goes in the discussion from time to time. I'll just open this up to anybody that wants to respond, but is there any plan in any of this for transit or bus service, that sort of thing?
I'm going to defer to the more senior members of my delegation.
I'm not aware of anything. I know we did pass some legislation last year, maybe on some transit stuff, but I'm not aware of anything.
Nothing specific to this proposal, but here's what I will say to you. If, when you say transit, well, that can mean many things. It can mean buses, it can mean light rail, you know, one of these days there will be flying cars. You know, I don't know if we'll see it, but where this could correlate to a discussion about transit is if you have a bus that's running from Murfreesboro to Nashville, or Franklin to Nashville, or Spring Hill to Nashville. Today, that bus is sitting in the same traffic as everybody else. If that bus is permitted to, and of course it probably would be, to use that choice lane, and you know you can get on a bus and get on your iPad or your phone or your computer or whatever, and you're going to be doing 70 miles an hour all the way into Nashville, it might make it more appealing for people. The whole discussion about transit, and that's a big, broad conversation, it's a cultural thing. We like our cars. We like our independence. And so I'm excited about the possibility of utilizing, if we do this, and this ends up happening, that these choice lanes could be used for some type of transit, be it buses, shuttles, or things of that nature. And we can see if that makes it more appealing. You know, the light rail thing, that is so expensive. And most light rail systems across the country are not making money. I mean, they have to be subsidized, so they end up being a drain, you know, on your budget. So, but buses using the choice lane would be a possibility.
Okay. One other infrastructure item, and then we'll move on to things like our audience is interested in on education and so forth. But broadband has been in the discussion a lot over the past couple of years, and I think there's been additional money allocated to this in this new session that's being discussed. Is there anything concrete yet?
Well, we have appropriated, gosh, I'm trying to remember the number. It's a lot. 500 million, it's a lot. And some of that is some of the federal money that came down that we could use on broadband. We have attacked that with a vengeance. And I would say broadly that we're more or less at a point now, we can't spend any more money. I mean, we're literally, the capacity to build out across the state is being maximized more or less. Where it's not, we will certainly provide additional resources if necessary. But we've stockpiled a boatload of money to deploy broadband, and that money is being spent. You know, here in Williamson County, very proud of our folks at United, partnering with Middle Tennessee Electric, and they're doing a great job. I've met with those folks a couple of times over the last few months to get an update on what they're doing in the rural parts of Williamson County to get broadband deployed. So it's a priority. It is the same thing that electrification was 100 years ago. Yep. You know, those last mile homes that are out there where the houses are, you know, half a mile apart, that it's very difficult. Those were the last ones to get electricity, and they're going to be the last ones to get broadband, but we want them to get it and get it fast.
Todd, your United Communications is, their headquarters is in Chapel Hill, right there near your home, I think.
Yes, it is. And I worked there at United early on, right out of high school, there for 7 years. And United Telephone Company is a great company. It's small business at its best. And last week, they just received a $50 million grant to service rural Tennessee. And I think it's 8 counties that they're going to cover during with that grant, and southern Williamson County being part of it. They also partnered with Duck River Electric, too, as well as Middle Tennessee Electric, and they're covering all those areas with broadband. So it's a great partnership, and the governor, I mean, that was one of his initiatives when he ran, and he's really stepped up to the plate, and you know, I want to give him a shout out for getting it done. He got it done.
Jake, was that an item high on the agenda where you knocked doors, or?
Absolutely. I mean, it's part of infrastructure. I think, particularly in rural areas, and I think the pandemic showed us just how bad rural areas needed it. You had kids in school that we were having to do Zoom classes. They had no internet access. They had to drive into town to do their homework. So, I mean, it was definitely, I think it became much more apparent over the past couple of years, but definitely an issue.
Okay. I probably need to mention that AT&T has a big part to play in this too. Dennis, I'll get you to speak to that here in a few minutes, but we got Dennis Wagner here with AT&T. So, quick other item before we go to the schools, historic property tax relief. And the downtown Franklin folks have come out in force in favor of a property tax relief bill of some type to assist these people that have historic properties, which are fairly expensive to maintain. Some type of tax relief on that. Who would like to address that and what the chances of that happening and how it could happen?
I don't know much about how it works, but I can definitely tell you that I feel those property owners' pain, and I'm here to support them.
Jack?
Yeah, so we had a great meeting. I see several of our county commissioners here. I'm not going to point them out. I see one who supports it and one who's opposed to it. So let me preface my comments by saying, when it comes to an issue like this, it has always been my policy, and I think Jake and Todd share that policy, as does Gino and Joey, that we're here to support our local governments. And I've had folks call and try to get me to be for or against doing this. I don't think that's my role. I think that's the responsibility of the county commission. They did pass a resolution, and if we have time, David, one of our outstanding commissioners here, might want to speak to it. But we had a meeting the other day, and they passed a resolution by more than a 2/3 vote, and when that happens, then that's my cue that I need to go to work on behalf of my county and our county. And so that's the position I'm in. It is a needle to thread. There are some constitutional issues relative to equal taxation across the state, but we got really smart people, good lawyers here on behalf of Williamson County. We are in process of getting a meeting set up with our comptroller's office to talk about that. They're the money cop for the entire state. They approve everybody's budget, and so get them together to see if there's a pathway to do what they would like to do.
Okay. Well, it's I know an interest that a lot of our Williamson County folks have had for years, because we've got so many historic properties in Williamson County. One question specifically I had, does it just apply to the Main Street buildings?
Well, it will do whatever the county wants to do, and I think that there's ongoing discussions about what properties would be included and where that would apply and what the criteria would be.
Gotcha. You all met with our school boards a couple weeks ago, I think, and they, I think, had several issues they wanted to talk about. The ones that made the news, and there's probably some that didn't make the news. I'll let Jason Golden here in a minute fill us in on the details. But the third grade retention policy, libraries and textbooks issues, charter schools, things like that. What did you learn from our school board that you can take back to Nashville? What are your thoughts, Jack?
Well, we are so fortunate here in Williamson County to have two amazing school systems. I'll start with that. Our Williamson County school system and our Franklin Special School District are two of the premier districts in the entire nation, not just the state. I mean, we're very, very fortunate. And I tell them all the time, if every school system in Tennessee was of the same quality as those two districts, we would be far and away the #1 state in the nation in terms of educational outcomes. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We have 140-ish, I think, school systems across the state, and some are doing a wonderful job. Some are facing challenges, and you've got different challenges across the state. Inner city issues with broken families is a problem. You've got some rural districts that struggle with funding, and because they don't have the property tax base we have. It's just a wide array of different issues. We have to set policy for the state, okay? We don't set policy for Williamson County. When we pass a law, it is for the state, with rare exceptions when we do things that are specific for a local jurisdiction. And here's the problem. Only 1/3 of our third graders are reading at grade level, and that is abhorrent. That's bad. And the General Assembly, we've been talking about it for many years, and we've tried some different things, and some things are working, and we're not going to stop attacking this. If you get to the end of the 3rd grade, I'm told by my friends in education, and you can't read proficiently, you are doomed to fail, or your chances of success go down dramatically. Because K through 3, you learn to read. After that, you read to learn. And so the General Assembly did something bold and decisive. You don't see that in government a lot. We said, we're gonna attack this with a vengeance. And so we talk about 3rd grade retention, and things get labeled, and understandably. I wish it wasn't labeled that way, because we don't want to retain 3rd graders. We want them to be able to read proficiently by the time they finish 3rd grade. And we have appropriated hundreds of millions of dollars for intervention, for summer school camps, tutoring, and so forth. And but we did decide and make a policy that if all those things are tried and used and that kid's still not reading proficiently, then they might be held back. We did have a good meeting with both of our boards relative to some tools that maybe they have that we ought to be considering when we decide whether or not that child should advance, and very excited about continuing those conversations. But I can tell you, the General Assembly has made a decision, and the governor has made a decision. We are going to do everything we can to get these kids up to speed, not just in the 3rd grade. I mean, K, 1, 2, 3, but let's throw everything, including the kitchen sink, to try to get these kids to where they can read. If ultimately they can't, and we have a reasonable method of determining whether or not they can read proficiently, then yes, they should have to repeat 3rd grade. And that's the decision the General Assembly has made. So the details of that, it is a bold statement and a bold decision, and we're going to rely on our partners at the local district level to help us do that in the best manner possible.
Let me ask Jason Golden, our superintendent of schools here in Williamson County. Stand up, Jason, so the cameras get a good. This guy's 6'6", is that right? 6'7", 6'9", okay. I could stand on a chair and probably see you eye to eye. Williamson County, Jack just mentioned that statewide, only 30% of our kids read on the 3rd grade level. I guess that's when they're in 4th, 5th, 6th, and so forth. How does that compare to Williamson County, Jason?
In Williamson County, we actually have about a third who that first year they take TCAP as 3rd graders for ELA either land in what the state describes as below basic or approaching. So using those numbers, we're 2 times ahead. But we still have a substantial number of students who that first time they take that test perform at those lower levels. We're in the process of growing those students, and you think about the career of a student from kindergarten to high school, and they're growing that whole time. Senator Johnson is right. There's a lot of research that indicates that if, in essence, if you're not able to read at 3rd grade, your opportunities, your chances go way down. For us, we know that starts the moment we start serving those students. From early childhood students with disabilities, when we start serving them at age 3, to kindergarten for most students at age 5. Mastering phonics, especially at those younger grades, are key to us. Senator Johnson mentioned some other measures. We have a screener, especially at those younger grades that we use, that identify whether students need remediation, whether they need interventions to help grow them while they're still in those grade level courses. You do some pullouts. You want to make sure those students are taking the grade level classes while getting those extra supports. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the interventions that the state has funded for us. Summer programs, tutoring, the interventions are great. Our core concern is there are some students who need a more comprehensive approach, and that you're gonna be retained at those youngest grades makes us concerned because every student's a little bit different. We need a little bit more tools in our toolbox.
Now, I'm assuming you're suggesting that there could be some amendments to this legislation that you think would be helpful. What would you suggest that would also accomplish what they're trying to do?
Well, our board passed a resolution asking for some discretion on the back end, and we've had some discussions related to that. The state also has some screeners. I know there's already some introductory discussions at the state level for checking a different measure. The issue is ability to read. TCAP measures mastery of state standards. So there's some discussion about, are there some different measures to address that?
Todd, Jake, you're on the education committees, multiple committees. What do you propose to do? Is there anything you think that?
And Jack said it well. I mean, we got a problem here in this state, and we've got to address it. Statistics show, I'm getting some echoes here. So statistics show in our state prisons, when our prisoners enter the prison, they're taking only men, I think 90% of the men can only read on a first grade level. 90% of the women read at the third grade level. When folks, and we all know this, when people can't read and write, they can't hold a job. When they can't hold a job, they turn to the streets. And we've got to get, we've got to get ahead of this early. I think there's some legislation coming that would allow the universal screeners, I think it's called, to take that, some of that assessment into account before a child is retained. I think I could support that, but I supported the bill when it came across, and I do believe we've got to step up here in the state and do more for our students, make sure they're reading.
Jake, you've got kids in school. Do you have any opinions about all this yet?
Well, I mean, me being the new guy, it is a problem that we have in our state, and I think, there are things that we should be taking into consideration, like these screeners. I think that, not taking anything off the table, but having maybe some language that says, if, it meets a certain metric, you have discretion. But, when you look at other counties, and again, to Jack's point, not every county, not every school district in this state is Williamson County. And it is a problem. I mean, I don't know what the number is. I mean, well, Jason talked about it. If you remove the rest of the state, Williamson County looks pretty good. But we can't make policy just for Williamson County. And had I been on in the General Assembly when that bill came across, I would have supported it.
Jump to one other subject, and then we're going to try to open it up for questions. I got a suspicion that there are a few out here, and I want to give us time to listen to our audience. But the other major thing in the news right now is our criminal justice system. A lot of changes being made there by our governor. Apparently couldn't find anybody in the state of Tennessee to run the prison system, so he had to reach out to out of state. Was that the right decision, Jack?
Yeah, so the governor, obviously running the executive branch, has, I think it's 20-something different commission-level cabinet members, and he's got a great team. And he's got some really, really good people working for him. I've not met the new commissioner yet, but from what I hear is a good person. That's a very difficult job in state government, running prisons. And certainly, you're right, you kind of prefaced that question talking about some of the criminal justice reforms that we've put in place. A lot of that's going to take place and involve corrections. And by that I mean, we talked about this last year, I think, and in years past, talking about criminal justice reform. 85% of the people who are in prison right now are going to get out at some point. 85% of them are going to be back in our community or in some community out there. And so are we doing a good job making sure that they are productive citizens, law-abiding citizens, and that they're not going to re-offend and end up back in the criminal justice system? And a lot of that's going to take place while they're in prison, with training, job training, all that kind of stuff. Some of it takes place while they're on parole or in probation. On the front side, we did a lot for nonviolent offenders. I always use an example of our wonderful recovery court system we have here in Williamson County. And full disclosure, my wife is the presiding judge of that system, and the wonderful work they do. I think they have a 20% recidivism rate for people that go through that program, where it's an 80% recidivism rate the other way. So let's do more things that work. And then we've certainly stiffened penalties for violent offenders. I mean, when you commit a heinous crime, we're going to lock you up for a long time, and you're going to serve all of the sentence that you get. No more of this getting sentenced to 10 years, and in 28 months, you're back out on the street. You get 10 years, you're going to serve 10 years. And so we've strengthened it on the violent side. For nonviolent offenders, we're trying to do things, most of these are, drug offenses, to do things that are smarter, keep them out of the prisons. It's a whole lot better for someone to continue to be a parent, to work a job, pay taxes, than us spend $30,000 a year to keep them in prison, if that can work. And so we're trying to do more things like that. I'll tell you an interesting bill. This is how the system works. And Jake, I think you're going to carry this on the House side. Constituent reached out to me, and she was a victim of domestic violence. She was in a volatile relationship, and her significant other at the time assaulted her and choked her to the point she was unconscious. And come to find out that when you do that, as the code reads now, you can be charged with assault. And this constituent reached out and said, if someone chokes you until you are unconscious, I think they're trying to kill you. And the DA should at least have the option to charge them with attempted homicide. And I thought, duh. I mean, we can't already do that. And so that's a good example. That's a bill that Jake and I are going to be carrying. And we've talked with our DA, Kim Helper, and on that. But that's a good example of a constituent reaching out about something. You mentioned criminal justice, made me think about it. But yeah, if you choke someone to the point that they're unconscious, that's attempted murder, and we're going to make it that way.
Good. Greg, stand up, introduce yourself. I think you had something to do with the historic property tax relief effort, but apparently there's some issue with the constitutionality according to our comptroller. How are you going to fix that?
Well, Jack's going to fix it. So,
Introduce yourself.
okay. I'm Greg Lawrence, County Commissioner in the 4th District. The downtown district business owners did come to the county. We did have a reappraisal, and we passed a tax increase a few years ago, and their taxes went up substantially, in some cases 300% and 400%. And we actually do a terrible job of communicating the fact that we are giving a tax increase. And most constituents don't know it until they get their notice in the mail that, hey, my taxes are going up, and they went up substantially. And for most of the retail shops on the square, they're on triple net leases, which means that if the taxes go up, that gets sent straight to your rent, and so your bottom line gets hit pretty hard. In some cases, was a significant increase. So the question was, what if anything can we do about it? And legally, right now, there's not a lot we can do about it. And so we have found in other states that there are historic overlays for tax purposes that some states have enacted that allows downtown, and they were designed for downtown districts, because this is the case all over America. Downtown districts, in most cases, in like my hometown in Union City, they're in bad shape. Franklin's an exception, but they need, there ways that we can help them. And so what we're asking for is a statewide historic overlay that would not apply just to downtown Franklin, but other cities as well, but give us as county commissioners a tool in our toolbox to possibly help them reduce the burden. So,
good. Love to give you time to talk more about that. We got some other folks that are interested in discussing some of these others, but go ahead.
okay. Last night I was at the Republican meeting with the new Attorney General Skermetti, which, by the way, he's a very impressive attorney. I think he's going to do a great job.
I've known Greg a long time, and you get him started on something, it can last a while. So
the main subject was illegal immigration. Everybody there was the topic they wanted to talk about, and we actually have a problem in Williamson County with we have record numbers of overdoses. If the sheriff was here, he could tell you that if our deputies didn't have dioxicam on them, which is reverses the effects of fentanyl, we would have a lot more deaths, but the people are dying from it. I actually attended a funeral of a young man who grew up with my son a couple years ago. Right here in Williamson County, died of a fentanyl overdose. So this is killing our citizens, and it's affecting every city and county in America. And so everybody wants to know, what can we do about it? The Attorney General says we don't even know how many illegal immigrants are in our state. We have no real record of these that track these people. And his answer, when pressed about it, was very lawyerly. That until the federal government wants to do something, there's really not a lot we can do. But to me, that seems to be an issue. This is an issue where states may have to press their 10th Amendment rights to try to do something. So is there anything that we can do to legally to do a better job of tracking illegals and especially, stopping the fentanyl from coming in?
Gentlemen?
Well, I'll be brief. I'm going to let these guys chime in on it because it's something we hear about all the time from constituents. And I agree with General Scarametti. And by the way, he is doing an outstanding job as we got a new Attorney General, for those of you who may not know, last September 1st. And I've known him for some time, and he's great. He's going to do a great job. What's frustrating about this is that the Trump administration demonstrated that you can control, or to a large degree, you can control who comes across your southern border. And whether it was building a wall, deploying resources, the Trump administration did a lot to stem the tide of that. And had they been able to complete their agenda, I think would have had the border, for the most part, secured. Is it ever going to be 100%? No, maybe not. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has undone most of those efforts. And that's sad, and it's frustrating because I remember when I was campaigning in 2006, you know what the number one issue was? Illegal immigration, when I was knocking on doors. So we saw great headway, and we saw a president for the first time in a long time who was truly committed to trying to get that border secured. And now the Biden administration has undone virtually all of that. So now record numbers of people are flowing into our country. So it's very frustrating. It is. We can't build a wall between us and Alabama or us and Kentucky. And so once they're in this country, they're free to more or less move about. And so what I've always said is we have to do everything and we can in this state to demagnetize, to make it as unappealing as possible. If you're in the country illegally and you come into the country illegally, I want Tennessee to be the last place in the world you want to come to. How do we do that? Well, we use tools like E-Verify, which we do have in the state, and we should have broader usage. We should have more enforcement. If you're an employer in the state and you hire someone who's in the country illegally and you don't go through the proper steps, you don't utilize E-Verify to make sure they're in the country legally, then you lose your business license, you get your business shut down. That would go a long way to keeping people from wanting to come. I passed several years ago what was called the SAVE Act. We use a lot of acronyms in government, Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlement Program. And what it basically said is that any state-issued entitlement that's going to go out, you have to verify that that person's in this country legally before you get any entitlement money. So things like that. Those are a couple of examples.
I'd love to spend more time on this. Todd, you've probably got some personal experience being in the construction business on that subject.
Yes, it's tough. It's tough out there now to find help. Construction work. A lot of times, that's where you see those folks at. But I double down on what he said. I'm for protecting. The Biden administration has done a terrible job. They're liable for these deaths. Real quick, I was talking to an undercover deputy sheriff in Bedford County here a while back. He said during the Trump, when the wall got going and they really got to cracking down on immigration, he said it was almost impossible to buy meth and fentanyl on the street. He said the minute the Biden administration come into office, they opened the borders up. He said it's everywhere. He said he can go to any corner. This was in Bedford County, not in Nashville. This is down in Shelbyville,
Right.
and can pick it up on any corner on the streets down there. So it's something that we definitely have a problem with.
Right. Questions from our audience. or comments? Ernie Bacon's looking away from me. That means he doesn't want me to call on him, but Dennis Wagner? I'll get the guy beside you here in a minute. You're with AT&T.
Correct.
And you're very kind to help this program out financially. What's AT&T doing with broadband, and how's that looking these days?
Well, AT&T's spending about $1.2 billion every 3 years here in this state, spreading broadband. The one thing you got to remember is broadband is not just that connection to your home, it's also these things. There's more connections to the internet through these things and your iPads than there are through a wired thing to your home now. So this is broadband also, and don't ever forget that. And we're spreading that. The new 5G services are coming online fast and furious, and that's really going to help spread too in the rural areas where we can reach people wirelessly than with a wired fiber optic cable. It's expensive. As Leader Johnson pointed out, when you get out to that last mile, to run a fiber optic line out there doesn't make a financial sense, and so sometimes this is the way to go. A lot of good partners around now, as Jack and the others have mentioned. That others that are into the business now, and where we can't get to them, it's easier for them to go in these rural areas, and so that's working very well. The state's done a great job with the dollars that are available from the feds, and also a bill that we passed last year that exempts the sales tax from the purchase of broadband equipment that we are installing. So that gives us 10% more money that we can put into expanding broadband. So that was a good move. It's been it's being a model across this country now that other states are looking at to exempt the sales tax on broadband equipment. So there's some good things happening. It's going to take a while. It's not something that is overnight going to reach everybody, but that is the goal.
Gentleman sitting beside you, Kent Starlalt, stand up, please. President, is it, of Tennessee Road Builders Association?
Executive Vice President.
Executive Vice President. I want to get that right. How does your membership feel about the choice lanes?
Well, first of all, we're also waiting for the details on the bill as well, and I think we'll probably hear that to stay the state. But we build things, right? And so when you're talking about building a choice lane, you're talking about 6 lane in our rural interstates, which is really important, we think, to the economy of the state. The Senator talked about I-24, and right once you get to Murfreesboro and to Chattanooga, it's unbelievably congested as well, just trying to get down there. And so looking at all that stuff, right? So we're supportive of the overall concept of what they're trying to do, again, because we build things and we think we want to try to, address the economy, address congestion, safety, all that kind of stuff. So we're look forward to seeing what the governor's bringing forth.
We'll look forward to more details on that. I'd love to talk for another 30 minutes or so, but I see the clock is ticking down close to 8:30, and that's our cutoff time. We've got about 2 minutes, and I want to be sure and thank everybody that takes a part in this effort. We've got, again, the Channel 3 crew from the Williamson County TV organization, Creed. We appreciate you being here bright and early and getting us on the air. Our Tom Lawrence and Tommy Jackson over at WAKM make sure that we get out on the radio every week. Vanderbilt University and also Vanderbilt Medical Center, thanks to Christine Bradley and golly, I'm trying to get all these names straight. Lynn Maddox, thank you. In a financial way, they help us. AT&T in a financial way helps make this show possible. We've got a new group that owns most of the McDonald's in Williamson County called the Lion Leadership Group, and they make sure we have coffee here every morning. So that's appreciated. The chamber staff, Matt Kell McDowell is the quarterback on this effort, and we appreciate them making us look good. And last but probably most importantly, Columbia State Community College has given us this great facility to host these sessions. Dr. Darrell Ampley, Dr. Janet Smith, Mary Beth Shalley is the one that really makes it all happen. But we appreciate all y'all do. And I look forward to being back here on February 24th, and continue these conversations. If you've got questions, we'll try to get to all of them next time. But I'm sorry, we've got one or two I know that want to ask a question, but these guys will be here for just a little while longer, and we'll try to get to you next time. Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you next month.